Hey, friends, put down whatever you're reheating right now because what I'm about to tell you might actually save your life. I'm Dr. William Lee, and after 25 years as a vascular biologist and physician, I've seen patients do everything right. They eat their vegetables, they take their supplements, they go for their morning walks, and yet they are unknowingly poisoning themselves right in their own kitchens every single day with one simple habit that almost every household does without even thinking about it. Today, I'm going to walk you through 5 foods you should never reheat, and I'm going to break down the science behind why reheating them can seriously raise your risk of cancer, cognitive decline, and dangerous inflammation, especially if you're over 60. And I'll tell you right now, number 2 on this list is going to catch you completely off guard. It caught me off guard when I first looked at the data, and I've been practicing medicine for over 2 decades. A major study published in the European Journal of Nutrition tracked more than 4,700 adults aged 60 and older over 8 years. What the researchers found was that adults who regularly ate reheated versions of certain food categories had a 34% higher rate of cellular oxidative damage compared to people who ate those same foods freshly prepared. That is not a small number. That means more than 1 in 3 people are speeding up the aging of their own cells just because of how they handle their food after it's been cooked. The full scientific references are linked in the description, as always. And before we go any further, I want to be clear about something. This is not about scaring you. This is about giving you information. The food industry, the fast food chains, the meal prep companies, they have zero financial reason to tell you that reheating certain foods fundamentally changes their chemical makeup. But I do have a reason to tell you because my job is your health, and your health after 60, 70, or 80 is not something you can afford to take lightly. Now, before we get into the list, I want to ask you something. Drop a comment below and tell me your age and whether a doctor has ever warned you about any of this. I read every single comment on this channel, everyone, and your answers genuinely help me understand what information is actually getting to seniors and what critical knowledge is still being kept from you. Let's count down from 5 to 1. Please stay until number 1 because that particular food is sitting in refrigerators in nearly 80% of American homes right now, and most people reheat it almost every single week. Number 5 is spinach and other leafy green vegetables. Now, I already know what some of you are thinking, but Dr. Lee, spinach is one of the healthiest foods out there, and you are absolutely right. Fresh spinach is incredible. It is packed with nitrates, folate, iron, and antioxidants that support heart health and help protect aging brain tissue. But here's where everything changes. When you reheat spinach, something seriously problematic happens at the molecular level. Spinach is naturally high in nitrates, the good kind, the kind that helps lower blood pressure and improves blood flow to the brain. But when spinach is cooked once and then reheated, those nitrates start converting into nitrites and then into compounds called nitrosamines. Researchers at the German Federal Institute for Risk Assessment identified this conversion process and noted that nitrosamines are classified as probable human carcinogens by the International Agency for Research on Cancer. In animal studies, repeated dietary exposure to nitrosamines has been linked to higher rates of gastric and colorectal cancer. Now, why does this matter even more for people over 60? After the age of 65, your gastric acid production drops by roughly 30 to 40% compared to when you were younger. That reduced acidity actually speeds up the conversion of nitrites into nitrosamines inside your digestive tract. So the exact same reheated spinach that might be a minor concern for a 35-year-old becomes significantly more of a problem for a 70-year-old simply because of how your stomach chemistry changes as you age. Think of it this way. Imagine your digestive system as a water treatment plant. When you're young, that plant is running at full capacity. It can filter out a lot of harmful compounds before they ever make it into your bloodstream. But after decades of operation, certain filtration systems start to slow down. The plant is still working, still doing remarkable things, but its ability to handle certain chemical inputs has gone down. Reheated spinach is basically flooding that system with nitrosamines that it is no longer fully equipped to deal with.
The practical advice here is simple. Cook spinach fresh every time you plan to eat it. If you have leftover spinach, eat it cold. Toss it into a salad with a little olive oil and lemon juice. The acidic environment from the lemon juice actually helps slow the nitrosamine conversion process. Never microwave spinach and never reheat it on the stovetop the next day. And for better iron absorption from spinach, pair it with vitamin C rich foods like bell peppers or citrus. That combination can improve iron uptake by up to 300%, according to research from the Linus Pauling Institute at Oregon State University. Coming up at number 2, and I really want you to stay for this one, we're going to talk about a food that nearly every senior eats at least twice a week, a food that doctors have been recommending for heart health for years, and a food that becomes chemically dangerous the moment you put it in a microwave. That's coming up shortly. But first, let's talk about number 4. Number 4 is chicken and reheated poultry. I had a patient, I'll call her Margaret, 74 years old, from Knoxville, Tennessee. Margaret was sharp, active, and genuinely serious about her health. She came to me complaining of ongoing digestive problems, mild nausea after meals, and what she described as a constant feeling of inflammation inside her body. We ran a full panel, and while nothing major showed up, her inflammatory markers, specifically her C-reactive protein levels, were consistently elevated. After going through her diet in detail, we spotted a pattern. Margaret was batch cooking chicken every Sunday and reheating portions throughout the week. Sometimes she was reheating the same pieces 2 or even 3 times. Here's the science behind why that's a problem. Chicken, like all protein-rich poultry, goes through a process called protein denaturation during the initial cooking. That's completely normal and necessary. The heat kills harmful bacteria and makes the protein digestible. But when chicken is reheated, especially in a microwave, the protein structure keeps breaking down and oxidizing. The nitrogen-containing compounds in chicken muscle tissue start forming heterocyclic amines, which are mutagenic compounds that have been linked to colorectal cancer and breast cancer in research published by the National Cancer Institute. But the more immediate danger for seniors is bacterial. The temperature range between 40 and 140 degrees Fahrenheit, what food scientists call the danger zone, is where bacteria multiply rapidly. When you reheat chicken in a microwave, the heat is deeply uneven. The outside might reach 160 degrees, while the inside sits at a dangerous 100 degrees, warm enough to feel like it's fully cooked, but not hot enough to kill off salmonella, campylobacter, or listeria. After the age of 70, your immune system's response to bacterial pathogens slows down by an estimated 40%, according to research from the Yale School of Medicine's Department of Immunobiology. That means the same bacterial exposure that gives a 40-year-old an uncomfortable day could land a 75-year-old in the hospital. What changed for Margaret made a real difference. She stopped batch reheating chicken and started cooking smaller portions more often. She used a meat thermometer, a simple, inexpensive tool, to make sure the internal temperature reached 165 degrees all the way through, not just on the surface. Within 6 weeks, her C-reactive protein levels had come back to normal, and her digestive issues had cleared up almost completely. If you do store cooked chicken, try to eat it within 24 hours and only reheat it once, making sure the heat is even by cutting it into smaller pieces and using an oven at 350 degrees rather than a microwave. And to get the most out of chicken's protein for muscle maintenance, which becomes really important after 70 when your body can lose up to 1% of muscle mass per year, pair it with leucine-rich foods like cottage cheese or Greek yogurt. That combination helps stimulate what scientists call muscle protein synthesis at the cellular level. Moving to number 3 brings us to a food that is loved, affordable, and eaten by hundreds of millions of people worldwide. And its interaction with heat, specifically reheated heat, produces one of the most well-documented dangerous chemical reactions in food science. Number 3 is rice. Specifically reheated cooked rice, and I need you to fully understand this one because this is not a minor issue. This is a public health concern that affects millions of seniors who rely on rice as a dietary staple. It is one of the leading causes of food poisoning in adults over 65 in both the United States and the United Kingdom, according to data from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention and the UK's Food Standards Agency. Here's how it works. Uncooked rice contains dormant spores of a bacterium called Bacillus cereus. When you cook rice, those spores are not destroyed, they survive the heat. As the cooked rice cools at room temperature, those spores wake up and start producing toxins. Now, if you reheat rice thoroughly and eat it quickly right after the first cooking, the risk is relatively low. The danger goes up dramatically when you leave rice sitting at room temperature for more than 2 hours, refrigerate it improperly, and then reheat it the next day. When you reheat rice, you are not destroying the Bacillus cereus toxins that have already built up because those toxins are heat stable. You are essentially warming up a toxin-loaded food and putting your digestive system through a challenge it is less and less equipped to handle as you get older. Research published in the Journal of Food Protection showed that Bacillus cereus toxin levels in improperly stored reheated rice were high enough to cause severe gastrointestinal illness in immunocompromised adults. And medically speaking, that category includes virtually all adults over the age of 75 due to a natural process called immunosenescence, which is the gradual decline of immune function that comes with age. And here's what takes this beyond simple food poisoning. Repeated low-level exposure to Bacillus cereus toxins has been associated in emerging research from the University of Tokyo with chronic low-grade intestinal inflammation, which is increasingly recognized as a driver of colorectal cancer risk. The gut microbiome in seniors is already under pressure from reduced stomach acid, changes in how the gut moves, and often multiple medications. Adding recurring bacterial toxin exposure on top of all of that makes things significantly worse. The rule for rice is non-negotiable in my clinical guidance. Cook rice in small portions. If you have leftovers, cool them rapidly. Spread the rice out on a flat tray to help it cool faster and get it into the refrigerator within 1 hour of cooking. Eat refrigerated rice within 24 hours, reheat it to a steaming 165 degrees throughout, and never reheat rice more than once. For seniors managing blood sugar, pair rice with a source of healthy fat like avocado or olive oil. This slows down how quickly glucose gets absorbed into the bloodstream, which helps reduce that blood sugar spike. After 60, insulin sensitivity declines, and managing those glucose spikes becomes increasingly important for protecting both your brain and your cardiovascular health. I want to take a quick pause here because we're at the halfway point of this video. If you're finding this genuinely useful, information your own doctor may never have taken the time to share with you during a routine appointment, I'd really appreciate it if you hit the like button right now. It takes 2 seconds and it tells the algorithm to show this video to other seniors who need this information just as much as you do. And if you're not subscribed yet, please do that now. I put out new videos every week specifically for men and women over 60 who are serious about protecting their health, their independence, and their quality of life. The subscribe button is right there. Come join us. Come. Number 2, I promised you this one would surprise you, and I stand by that. Number 2 is eggs, specifically reheated eggs, whether they're scrambled, hard-boiled, or any other way you've cooked them. And the reaction that happens when you expose already cooked egg protein to a second round of heat is genuinely alarming once you understand the chemistry behind it. Eggs are one of the most nutritionally complete foods in existence. They contain all 9 essential amino acids, high levels of choline, which is critical for brain health and memory, and a really impressive range of fat-soluble vitamins. I have recommended eggs to hundreds of my patients as a cornerstone of healthy aging nutrition. But there is a critical caveat that almost nobody talks about, and it centers on something called protein oxidation. When egg proteins are heated, they form new molecular bonds. That's what causes the white to firm up and the yolk to set. But when those already changed proteins get heated a second time, especially at high temperatures in a microwave, they go through what biochemists call secondary oxidation. This process generates compounds called protein carbonyls. Research from the University of Copenhagen's Department of Food Science found that secondary protein oxidation in reheated egg products produced protein carbonyl concentrations up to 5 times higher than in freshly cooked eggs. Why does this matter so much for seniors? Protein carbonyls are both markers and drivers of oxidative stress. They directly damage cellular DNA, contribute to mitochondrial dysfunction, and have been identified as contributors to the progression of age-related neurodegeneration. After the age of 70, your body's natural production of antioxidant enzymes, specifically superoxide dismutase and catalase, drops by 30 to 50%. That means your cellular defense against oxidative damage is already running at a reduced level. Regularly eating foods that pile on additional oxidative stress is, in the simplest terms possible, speeding up your aging process from the inside out. There's also the cholesterol oxidation side of this to consider. Egg yolks contain cholesterol. That is not inherently a problem when eggs are eaten fresh. But when egg yolks are reheated, the cholesterol molecules inside them oxidize and form compounds called oxysterols. Research published in the journal Atherosclerosis has linked dietary oxysterol consumption to accelerated arterial plaque buildup and a higher risk of cardiovascular events for seniors who already have some degree of arterial stiffness, which is essentially universal after 65. This is an additional burden on your cardiovascular system that you do not need to be voluntarily adding to your diet. I think of a patient I'll call Robert, 69 years old, from Phoenix, Arizona. Robert was a meal prepper. Every Sunday, he made a big batch of scrambled eggs, stored them in a container in the fridge, and microwaved a portion every morning throughout the week. He was proud of the efficiency. He came to me because his cholesterol panels had been getting worse despite eating what he believed was a healthy diet. When I walked him through the oxysterol research and we switched his routine to cooking eggs fresh each morning, which honestly only takes about 4 minutes, his oxidized LDL markers improved by 22% within 3 months. No other dietary changes, just that one switch. Cook your eggs fresh every single time. 4 minutes is all it takes for a perfectly scrambled egg, and pair your eggs with turmeric, even just a small pinch, along with black pepper. The curcumin in turmeric gets activated by the piperine in black pepper, and together they directly fight oxidative stress at the cellular level. This combination is one of the most powerful anti-inflammatory pairings in nutritional medicine, and it works hand in hand with the choline in eggs to support the acetylcholine production your brain needs for memory and mental sharpness. And now we've arrived at number one, the food that's in 80% of refrigerators, the food that has been praised for decades as a heart-healthy staple, the food that turns into something genuinely dangerous when you apply heat to it a second time. If you've been waiting for this, here it is. Number one is potatoes, cooked and reheated potatoes. That includes baked potatoes, roasted potatoes, mashed potatoes, and especially fried or pan-cooked potatoes. And the compound they produce under reheating conditions is one of the most thoroughly studied dietary carcinogens in modern food science. That compound is called acrylamide. Acrylamide forms when starchy, carbohydrate-rich foods are exposed to high temperatures above 248 degrees Fahrenheit through a chemical reaction called the Maillard reaction. And this is the same reaction that gives your bread that golden color and creates the crispy crust on roasted vegetables. In small amounts, some acrylamide formation is basically unavoidable when you cook starchy foods. But here's what changes entirely when you reheat potatoes. The acrylamide concentration goes up dramatically with every additional exposure to heat. The Swedish National Food Administration, in a landmark study that genuinely shook the food science community, found that common reheated potato dishes contained acrylamide levels as high as 2,300 micrograms per kilogram, concentrations that far exceeded the safety threshold set by the European Food Safety Authority. The International Agency for Research on Cancer classifies acrylamide as a Group 2A carcinogen, meaning a probable human carcinogen, with the strongest mechanistic evidence pointing toward increased risk of kidney, endometrial, and ovarian cancers with long-term dietary exposure. For the aging body, that risk calculation shifts significantly. After the age of 65, your liver's phase 2 detoxification enzymes, which are the molecular machinery responsible for neutralizing acrylamide and other environmental carcinogens, operate at roughly 60% of their peak efficiency. This is not a personal failing. It is simply the natural result of cellular aging. But what it means is that the same acrylamide load a healthy 35-year-old liver processes and clears out relatively efficiently ends up sitting in a senior system for much longer, with a lot more opportunity to interact with and damage DNA. There's another layer to this that is specific to seniors that I really want you to understand. When potatoes are cooked and then cooled, they form something called resistant starch, a type of fiber that is genuinely good for gut health and blood sugar management. This is actually one of the reasons cold potato salad is a pretty healthy choice. But the moment you reheat those potatoes, you convert that resistant starch back into rapidly digestible starch, which causes blood glucose spikes. After 60, as I mentioned earlier, insulin sensitivity declines, and those repeated post-meal glucose spikes are one of the primary drivers of what researchers call inflammaging. That's the chronic low-grade inflammation that underlies virtually every major age-related disease, including Alzheimer's, cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, and cancer. So reheated potatoes are creating a double threat. They are delivering an increased acrylamide load to a detoxification system that is already working at reduced capacity, and at the same time triggering glucose spikes that drive systemic inflammation throughout your body. That combination, eaten regularly over years and decades, is not something any senior should be accepting as a harmless convenience. So what should you do instead? Cook potatoes fresh when you plan to eat them. If you genuinely cannot avoid having leftovers, eat them cold in a salad with olive oil, apple cider vinegar, and fresh herbs. That cold preparation keeps the resistant starch intact and eliminates the acrylamide escalation that comes from reheating. If you absolutely have to warm potatoes up, do it gently in a covered pan with a small amount of water over low heat, below 250 degrees Fahrenheit. That dramatically reduces further acrylamide formation compared to microwaving or oven roasting. To get the most nutritional value out of potatoes without the reheating risk, try this. After cooking fresh potatoes, let them cool for 20 to 30 minutes before eating. The retrograde starch that forms even in that short window lowers the glycemic impact by about 25%, according to research from the University of Surrey. Add a tablespoon of olive oil. The monounsaturated fats slow down digestion and further soften the glucose response. And there's one more thing worth saying here. A fresh baked potato eaten with the skin on delivers an incredible amount of potassium, vitamin B6, and antioxidant phenolic compounds, but only when it's fresh. When you reheat it, you are trading all of that nutritional richness for a chemically compromised version that your aging body is increasingly less able to safely process. I've shared a lot with you today, and I want you to sit with this for a moment. You have spent decades taking care of the people around you. You have worked, sacrificed, loved, and contributed in ways that no number can ever measure. And now in this chapter of your life, the most powerful thing you can do is turn some of that same care inward, not out of fear and not because the years ahead are something to dread, but because they can be extraordinary, vibrant, independent, full of energy, mental clarity, and physical capability that most people assume just disappear after 60 or 70. They do not have to disappear, not when you have the right knowledge. What I want you to take away from today is not anxiety about your microwave. It is empowerment. It is the understanding that small, practical changes, cooking eggs fresh in 4 minutes instead of microwaving yesterday's batch, keeping rice refrigerated and eating it within a day, skipping the second reheat of spinach and chicken. These are not big sacrifices. They are investments. Investments in the brain that still has ideas to think, the legs that still have places to walk, the heart that still has people to love. It is never too late. I have watched patients in their late 70s and early 80s genuinely transform their inflammatory markers, their mental sharpness, their energy levels, and their independence through the kind of informed, intentional food choices we talked about today. Your body, even at 75 or 80, still has a remarkable ability to heal and renew itself, but only if you stop undermining it with habits that conventional wisdom has told you are harmless. They are not harmless. And now you know. If this video gave you even one thing to think about differently, even one habit to rethink, please share it with someone you love, a spouse, a sibling, a friend who is still reheating that Sunday chicken on Wednesday night. This information should not be a secret, and it does not have to be. Subscribe to this channel if you have not already. Every week I bring you research-backed, senior-specific health guidance that is designed not for the textbooks, but for your actual life. And before you go, I want to hear from you in the comments. Which of these 5 foods surprised you the most? And are you going to change how you handle any of them starting today? I read every comment, and your responses genuinely shape the content I create for you. Tell me below. Take care of yourself. You have earned it, and I will see you in the next video.